To answer your question, yes, we are two adult women. And yes, we love Bieber, and that's why we're publicly stalking him.
We're crazy.
Hey! Maybe he's what America needs. One nation under beams. We're gonna be two less lonely girls. We're gonna be two less lonely girls. We love Justin Bieber, and let us be clear, we're not being ironic at all.
Hosted by CORINNE Fisher and ROSEBUD BAKER.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Two Less Lonely Girls. I am CORINNE Fisher. I am right here in Tempe, Arizona, in my hotel room, the Moxie. And Rosebud and I were doing some traveling, some moving, and some oversleeping in my case this week. So we're going to do another kind of complimentary episode to one another. But we did have an interesting idea because there was an article that came out this week that kind of I'll just go ahead and say it. It shook the internet. We are living in a call out cancel culture right now. And someone had the audacity to write an article about Jagged Little Pill actually being bad. For the young listeners, Jagged Little Pill is the album that skyrocketed a 19-year-old Alanis Morissette to fame. It's a really important part of a lot of young women, especially of my age, a lot of young women's lives. And it's so funny because, of course, I flipped out when I saw the article just because it's so idiotic. And it really does seem like people are trying to find things that are kind of across the board appreciated and trying to destroy them. Then like 2 days later, I saw an article about how Gwen Stefani has always been kind of the queen of cultural appropriation. Now, those of you who are familiar with Gwen Stefani, I mean, you know, she does a lot of different looks, LEWKS, and yeah, she did go through a period where she was wearing a bindi. She did the Harajuku girls thing. But she does a lot of other, she also like wore adult braces, you know? So was she patronizing people who need adult braces? Like at a certain point throughout time, things have been culturally acceptable or culturally not acceptable. And in the 90s or early 2000s when she was doing these things, like that cultural appropriation was not something that we really talked about very much. So it's like, you know, to quote Alanis Morissette, you live, you learn. Anyway, quick Bieber update before we get into Jagged Little Pill, because what Rosebud and I decided is we split the album up. We're each going to tackle 6 songs. I believe there's 13 tracks, but technically the last track is a repeat version of one of the songs in the first 6 tracks. So it is an even 6 and 6. Rosebud's going to take the first 6. I'm going to take the second 6 because I consider myself an advanced Alanis Morissette fan. I think Rosebud would agree she's more of an intermediate. No shots fired. I've seen Alanis. I'm a huge, as you guys know, if you listen to me talk ever, I'm a huge Alanis Morissette fan. I've seen her in concert at least 5+ times, which is pretty amazing considering I was way too young to see her in concert when she was actually, this is going to be relevant, but that's, sorry, Tommy. I know that hurt me too. But like, are you guys familiar with her hits like On the Tequila? Yeah, you're not. So I'm a real Alanis Morissette fan. Seen her live 5+ times. Amazing. If you ever have the chance to see her, I highly recommend it. Right now, she's kind of busy doing meditation retreats at the Big Sur. I never know how to say that. At Big Sur? Is it on? Is it at? Is it inside? I don't really know. It's a place for rich people, so I've never been there. Quick Bieber update. He and Jailey have purchased a new Beverly Hills home. It's a $9 million home in Beverly Hills, and apparently they're looking to start a family soon. I don't know. This is information from Cosmo, so I'm not sure how much we can trust it. To me, that's ridiculous because, I mean, they seem like they're playing house right now. I'm honestly really worried about them. So I hope they're not bringing another living human being into this mess just yet. Although the kid will be very, very good looking. Extremely good looking. Really, really good looking, as Zoolander would say. So Justin Bieber recently shared that I am now very focused on repairing some of the deep-rooted issues that I have, as most of us have. I think we shared that quote. And now, just to recap, they already have a 1,000-acre lakeside property in Canada, but it looks like they it's like they bought that house and then mostly they've kind of been in Los Angeles or New York. And the home was just under $9 million. And earlier this week, Jailey posted some pictures from her and Justin's night in, with the caption, "My favorite kind of night." And it's just a shot of Justin in the kitchen with a bag from John and Vinny's. It looks like they kind of just moved in. There's not a lot of stuff in the apartment yet. And the house, if you go to Hilton Highland, Hyland, you can see some details about this house from the front. It's really beautiful and really classy. The home is called the Tropics. It was originally built in 1932 and set behind beautiful gates. This transitional gem is the ultimate in refinement, old Hollywood glamour mixed with casual California living, which is a great explanation. It's kind of like there's some trees in the front. There's a fire pit in the front. It has rocks instead of grass, which is a nice clean look. And looks like a white, not exactly, maybe it is brick. It's really, really cute. I really like it. It's not very not Trumpish, I think it's a really cute look. By Trumpish, I mean like gaudy and gold. Anyway, ostentatious. Okay, so let's get into Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill. First, I want to go over this article, which is what prompted Rosebud and I to do this. And additionally, if you guys didn't know, Diablo Cody and Alanis did turn Jagged Little Pill into a musical. It's coming to Broadway soon. It's already been put up in the Boston area. My best friend Tommy did see it. Hey, what's up? And I do have a tote bag from it, but I myself have not seen it yet. Hopefully I will be there opening night, because gotta make my publicist work for that incredibly large sum that I pay her to, just keep myself relevant. So this article was put in the Muse, which is part of fucking Jezebel, so we already know it's trash, by a woman named Tracy Clark Flory. So right out of the gates, I don't like her because she is using a hyphen. And oh my God, she's so annoying. Jesus Christ. So it starts with just like a photo of Alanis playing at a concert, and under it says, "Sorry, still love you, Alanis." Like, you're an adult. At a certain point, we have to stop saying sorry in captions when you're an adult and, in quotes, journalist. I'm going to read the article. The other day, my husband said to me, "I decided not to try to reason with you about buying Jagged Little Pill on vinyl and bought what was in our Amazon cart." I gave him a pitying look and said, "It is an amazing album. You'll see. You'll see." My husband is the reason we have a record player in the first place, and the only reason we have albums by the likes of Fleetwood Mac, Miles Davis, and the Beach Boys. At this point, my contributions to our vinyl collection had been two box. I have to say, it just makes me want to say pack because it reads like Pac-Man. 2 box. Oh, I couldn't be whiter. All Eyes on Me and Rihanna's Auntie. My taste in music is pretty much either what the cool kids were listening to back in middle school or contemporary top 40. You see, I'm exactly the kind of person who buys Jagged Little Pill on vinyl, and I am exactly the kind of person who buys records via Amazon Prime. This Venn diagram overlaps completely. I don't know that it does. I'm not sure. I mean, I think that most classic record collections actually would include Jagged Little Pill. And if you're going by Rolling Stone's top 500 albums of all time, Jagged Little Pill is 100% included. Anyway, when that square-shaped Amazon package arrived one afternoon, and also who the fuck buys vinyl on Amazon Prime, you loser? When that square-shaped Amazon package arrived one afternoon, I ripped it open and put it on immediately, feeling the thrill of nostalgic anticipation. This was more than 2 decades after I first listened to the album as a 12-year-old, which is good because that's around the time. I was a little younger because I believe a Jagged Little Pill, I have it on cassette tape from when I was in the 5th grade. And in the 5th grade, I guess I would have been like 11. So I'd purchased the CD at Tower Records, no doubt, after seeing Alanis on MTV angrily stomping around in the desert for the You Oughta Know music video. I remember the shock of recognition at her long-ass tangly hair and spastic movements. She was a weird, dirty, uncontainable girl just like me. That song channeled all of my simmering rage at dickhead little boys, at puberty's onslaught, and at the suffocating wave of feminine expectation about to wash right over me. Needless to say, I was now, as I slipped the vinyl out of its sleeve, in a different era and life phase. Yeah, I guess the one where you buy fucking records on Amazon Prime, toots. I had long ago made it through puberty, although my simmering rage at feminine expectation continued. I was no longer listening on my beat-up Sony Discman, but rather a nostalgically re-engineered record player. I had just picked up my toddler from daycare and was becoming the cliche parent imposing youthful cultural artifacts upon her offspring. As soon as the trippy guitar and harmonica of All I Really Want kicked in, my toddler started dancing and stomping circles, and I felt briefly vindicated. See, you already like it, I exclaimed to this little human whose favorite song is Baby Shark. Also, like, if this kid understands words, completely inappropriate album for a kid. Even my dumbass knows that. If I was honest, though, the bing, bing, bing of the electric guitar, the wobbly affectation of her voice, and the feeble lyrics, enough about me, let's talk about you for a minute. Enough about you, let's talk about life for a while. Okay. The fact that she called them feeble makes me want to stab someone. Because first of all, everyone knows that when you write down song lyrics and you just read them, 9 times out of 10, they're going to seem completely idiotic because this is not the way they're meant to be ingested. This line right here, this is the way Alanis sings it in the song is so fucking good. And you can't just read it out of context in some dumbass Jezebel article. You see, I'm already getting heated. Anyway, so she said those feeble, quote, her fucking words, not mine, had planted a seed of doubt. Next was You Oughta Know with its halting, haunting opening. I want you to, oh, sorry, I'll do it right. I want you to know I'm happy for you. It's pretty accurate if you've never heard it. When the electric guitar picked up and she wailed, yo, oughta know. I just woke up and also have no range whatsoever. Tracy says she cringed a little bit. What had once felt enlivening and validating now felt grating and corny. That electric guitar kept on clanging. Are electric guitars usually so electric? And I want to just pause and go back to the previous paragraph where Tracykins called Alanis's lyrics feeble. Okay, we continue. I was finding it hard to think, hard to be, hard to exist. All this, mind you, while she's driving a toddler in the car, so maybe you fucking pay attention. Well, actually, maybe she lives in New York because she seems pretty pretentious. So they're probably walking. Maybe they're on a scooter. I was finding it hard to think, hard to be, hard to exist in the same room as this music. God, this is a poorly written article. It's like a fucking 16-year-old's diary. I turned down the volume. Then I checked the RPM on the record player, which my son, I guess they're back in the fucking house with the husband's record player already. I can't follow this article. It's too feeble, which my son often tweaks to humorous effect. I don't know how, see this, I'm not sure. It's only a hipster can find humor in the RPM level of a record player, okay? But all was as it should be. And yet it was not at all. I'm going to reread that sentence again because it's so ridiculous. Then I checked the RPM on the record player, which my son often tweaks to humorous effect. But all was as it should be. And then in all caps. And yet it was not at all. Where was the album that I had loved so dearly and deeply? When Perfect, a plain, earnest song about the pressure to be, quote, good enough came on, I had a realization. Jagged Little Pill was Baby Shark for mid-90s angsty tween girls. No, it wasn't. The fuck are you talking about? Baby Shark is like Baby Beluga. If you guys didn't know that song, Baby Beluga in the deep blue sea, you swim so wild and you swim so free. Baby Shark is not fucking for Jagged, cannot be compared to Jagged Little Pill. This article is, this is why, God bless the internet, because as much as we're really damaging culture right now with canceling people, I will absolutely say the amount of unity and feminism I felt happening on the internet when we all as women came together as a group and attacked Tracy, it felt so powerful. And it's great because in the thread I actually saw other, kind of popular comedians that I fucking hate, truly, but in that moment I felt unity with them as we all attacked this complete moron. Back to the article. It spoke in the simplest language, literally and musically, to that particular psychological state of development at that particular cultural moment. Yeah, so it was art, because that's what art does. I hate this lady. She was every bit the flip sides of tender earnestness and fuck you anger that is so quintessentially middle school. No, she wasn't. She was 19, and even she was a very old 19 at the time because she had been working in the music industry since she's a fucking kid. If you guys don't know, Alanis Morissette, who is Canadian, was a famous singer already in Canada for many years before she came to America with Jagged Little Pill. Additionally, she was on the children's show You Can't Do That on Television, which was on Nickelodeon. Again, that's something from my youth. It was basically kind of like a sketch comedy show, and if you said a certain word, they would dump slime on you. God, it was so fucking good. Look it up on YouTube. It's not going to age well, but again, like, that's kind of what art does sometimes. Although Jagged Little Pill 100% holds up. I will stand by this to the day I fucking die. Back to the article. The song begins alongside some light guitar. Sometimes is never quite enough. If you're flawless, then you'll win my love. Don't forget to win first place. Don't forget to keep that smile on your face. Again, this is too hard of a song for me to even try to sing, but it is so beautifully sang when Alanis does it. If you've never heard this album, you absolutely have to go listen to it. It's available on Spotify. These are not profound lyrics. They are not timeless. Yeah, they are. Are we not using the word smile anymore? Has that been canceled? But holy fuck, did they speak to my sense of not being nearly good enough, according to Boys, according to 17 magazine, according to MTV Spring Break specials. Who's comparing themselves to MTV Spring Break specials? I think this lady needs to see a therapist. Maybe I'll give her my Talkspace code. Alanis was angry and unruly about not being good enough. She huffed. That's timeless. Ugh. She huffed real hard into her harmonica about it and filled me with "you go girl" feeling. The same was true with the song "I See Right Through You." I saw right through the bullshit too. Side note for another day, can we talk about the lyrics? You took a long hard look at my ass and then played golf for a while. That's a great lyric, Tracy. Tracy, you can tell, I mean, I no offense to other girls with flat asses, but Tracy is giving off hard flat ass vibes here. Tracy is so bitter that no one's ever looked at her ass, because no matter how many classes of Pilates she goes to, she can't quite get a bump, because at a certain point you're so white that you're not allowed to have one because you have absolutely no flavor. It wasn't even, quote, ironic, and it's infamous misuse of the word. We all know this. It's hack to even talk about Alanis Morissette's misuse of irony in this fucking song. This is literally shit that my uncle brings up over Hanukkah dinner. I mean, come on, he's 60 something years old. Anyway, so it wasn't even ironic, and it's infamous misuse of the word that ultimately broke me. It was these lyrics: you live, you learn, you love, you learn, you cry, you learn, you lose, you learn, you bleed, you learn, you scream, you learn. Again, you guys can't read these things. You got to listen to this, because she just lists so many things, and the way she does it is completely it's so good. Back to Tracy. I screamed, "Oh, did I?" And then I texted my husband a mea culpa. Oh, I might have said that wrong. Jagged Little Pill is actually very bad. You know how sometimes you know what things mean, but you're like, I've never actually said it out loud because I'm not pretentious like Tracy. Okay. This feels like, I got to actually look up this word, because now Tracy went to thesaurus.com, and I'm not going to pretend I know what this word means. So it's apostasy. We're going to learn a word together right now, and I'm not fucking ashamed. Okay, so, oh God, and I don't even know how to say it because I can't even understand. Let's read it.
Apostasy.
Oh, apostasy. Okay. Well, we learned how to say it. The abandonment or renunciation of a religious or political belief. Oh, well, that's why I don't know what it means. Okay. So this feels like apostasy. Alanis has lived in my head for the past 2 decades as the artful embodiment of a powerful, unruly, inspiringly angry woman. The same year that I first listened to Jagged Little Pill, my dad took me to see her perform at the Greek Theater in Berkeley. We stood in the mosh pit where plaid-wearing 20-something Cal students openly smoked pot, looking extremely impressed with themselves. Afterward, as the crowd poured out onto the street, Alanis's white limo went driving by, and I ran after her, screaming as she lifted a single hand through the moonroof and waved right at me, I was pretty sure. God, what a fucking badass you are, Alanis. I even saw that in my mind. That's how artistic Alanis is. I can even see her hand wave. She was a statement of possibility for my 12-year-old self and for many other girls and women at the time. The album's been called a powerful DIY feminist statement. Some have asked whether it's the most feminist album of the 90s. She was, as Alison Yarrow has argued, part of a crop of that era's women rockers, including Fiona Apple and Meredith Brooks, who represented a commercialization of riot girl rage. The nostalgia for Jagged Little Pill is such that it's soon to become a Broadway musical. This makes both Alanis and the album, which she co-wrote and recorded at the young age of 19, culturally significant, but it doesn't make it good, timeless music. And needless to say, it doesn't mean buy it on vinyl. Okay, so I really love an article that, first of all, trashes something that is a huge part of culture, and is supremely well done, and then the article doesn't actually make a point. Tracy Clark Flory, I just want to let everyone know, is a senior staff writer at Jezebel, which I guess means extra cunty, and she's wearing I can't see it, I can only tell by the neck, but her sweater is definitely not culturally significant, and it looks like it was probably purchased on Etsy, where she did a quick search for 80s sweaters. And then, of course, right out of the gates, it's I gotta disagree hard on this one. And God, a couple people liked it. But again, these are people who are making comments on the fucking Jezebel website. So I guess they are not people, definitely not in relationships. Okay, so that is that. Now we're going to go through the track listing for the second 6 songs one by one. And yeah, we're gonna really go through it. Have a little day right here. So song number 7 would be mine. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Oh, and technically, I guess if we're doing a bonus track, I will do 13 because it's Your House. God, that's a good one too. You might not even have heard it if you didn't let that album play long enough. So song number 7 is You Learn, which is great because it was part of Tracy's article. And let's do a little deep dive into that right now. Okay, so after I recorded that first part with the article where I got mad, well, then I had to leave for a flight back to New York from Phoenix, and then I came home and to be honest, got drunk off one Aperol Spritz because it was that kind of a Sunday night. And I just have been procrastinating ever since recording this because I don't think that anything I can say can properly verbalize how I feel about the album Jagged Little Pill. And I'm nervous because then this is going to be around forever. I mean, it's a podcast about Justin Bieber, so I don't know if it's going to be around forever. But, it'll be accessible for a while. But anyway, here we go. So there's so much information about the album Jagged Little Pill. There's a bunch of cunty articles, kind of like the one that I previously read to you guys. And then there's nice articles. I just found an article that where the lady tries to convince us that Fiona Apple is better than Alanis Morissette. And that made me laugh. I like Fiona Apple, but Alanis Morissette, she is not. And she has no singular album that's as good as Jagged Little Pill, which I think is really the achievement. Alanis certainly has some clunkers of songs and albums. She's married to a white rapper named Soleil. All these things we can and should hold against her. But as far as a singular piece or album, because we don't think of albums so much as like full concepts anymore, just because the way music has changed more into streaming. But back in my day, like for instance, I bought Jagged Little Pill on a cassette tape from a place in New Jersey called CD World, and it had the liner notes, and I would open them up, and I would every day after school in the 5th grade, after my mom read the lyrics and had a brief discussion with me, making sure that I was able to properly ingest those lyrics emotionally, which was very responsible of her. But awkward for me. And my friend Tracy Dombrowski and I would literally sing the entire album to each other on the phone every day after school in the 5th grade. And I didn't even have a cordless phone, never mind a cell phone. So I'd take the house phone that had a cord and run it all the way up my staircase, because I lived in the attic room. And we would just literally go through these liner notes. And neither of us are good singers, for the record, but we just sing this entire song. That's how much this album means to me. Okay. So she wrote most of this with a producer named Glenn Ballard. They had a very intimate, weird relationship. He's a lot older guy, kind of like a Celine Dion Grande kind of relationship, but only Alanis wasn't 12 the way Celine was. And a lot of these songs they supposedly wrote in one or two, or recorded in one or two takes, because I think the emotion was just so pent up in Alanis. So the first song for the second half of the album is song number 7, which is You Learn. It starts, if you're familiar, I recommend getting your heart trampled on to anyone. I recommend walking around naked in your living room. And this is where the album title Jagged Little Pill comes in, because Jagged Little Pill isn't a song on the album. It's just a line from the song You Learn, because the pre-chorus goes, swallow it down, what a jagged little pill, it feels so good swimming in your stomach, wait until the dust settles. And then the regular chorus is, you live, you learn, you love, you learn. One of the lines that was bastardized in the article I read by our girl at Jezebel. So, this song is pretty self-explanatory. It literally is just kind of her running with the common saying, you live, you learn. But there's a lot of things in here. Number one, just it sounds gorgeous. And for me, the first line is the most important line, because I kind of wanted to pick out the most important line from every song and provide you guys with a little bit of an Alanis Morissette guidebook to life, because that's certainly how I use Alanis. If any of you read the book I co-wrote with Christina, Fucked, I quote Alanis at least 3 times in that album. There was definitely more quotes that I had, but I actually had to remove them because it was too much Alanis quoting. I definitely had at least 5 in there initially, and then in the edit we pulled some of them out. But just the way I'm sure you guys have a podcast or a person or a musician or a poet that you turn to in times of romantic duress, Alanis Morissette is that person for me. I've never met the woman, but she is my relationship guru. She always has been for every breakup I've had. Even if I have a more specific breakup album, I absolutely turn to Alanis Morissette. And the 2 albums of hers that really have gotten me through things are definitely Jagged Little Pill and then Under Rug Swept, which comes later. I think for me, Under Rug Swept is a little bit more relevant, but Alanis is also in a lot more stable place in her life. When she writes Under Rug Swept years later, Jagged Little Pill is a pretty drug-induced album, and unfortunately I'm not cool enough to ever have lived that rough of a lifestyle, so some of this is a little much for me. And yeah, so I recommend getting your heart trampled onto anyone. I also recommend it because I do have a theory, and I've discussed this with many people. If you ever meet someone who's never gotten their heart broken, they're a strange. It's a strange breed of person. They're strange. There's a couple strange breeds of people that I'm obsessed with. One is the person who's never gotten their heart broken. One is the person who grew up in Manhattan, because they're never healthy. And then the third is former fat person turned thin person. Those are my three favorite odd types of people in personality trait wise. But yeah, if you have a friend who like married their high school sweetheart or something, like you probably have noticed they have trouble like relating or conversing in situations. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. Yeah. So this one's self-explanatory. So I think we're going to move on to the next one. And it is Head Over Feet. Okay. Head Over Feet, definitely a favorite on the album. Because it has the line like, you treat me like I'm a princess. This is a song that if you've ever seen Alanis Morissette live, this is a big sing-along song. This one starts with, I had no choice but to hear you. You stated your case time and again. I thought about it. You treat me like I'm a princess. I'm not used to liking that. You ask how my day was. That chunk right there is everything, to borrow a millennial term. I love this, although it does seem like someone just badgering you until you go out with them and like convincing someone, which I know in the Me Too era feels a little weird. But additionally, like, how many relationships do I know of, many, where the people that ended up together, one of them was very hesitant at the beginning, but not hesitant like, oh, we're in a dark room together and I'm pushing you away as you try to fuck me. Hesitant in like, sometimes we don't know what's best for ourselves, or the types of people that we like are not the type of people who appreciate who we are. And I think that's where like the Me Too movement can be a disservice sometimes, when we're over analyzing things. And as I always remind everyone, Jerry Halliwell wouldn't be in the Spice Girls if not for her persistence. So there's a difference between like harassing somebody and being persistent in the pursuit of what you want. And of course, it's different to want a thing or a career or an award than a person. But and you have to be respectful of a person's boundaries, and no does mean no. But I do think you can take a little time and try again, as long as you're not getting creepy and psycho. And, you know, it's these nuances. You should be able to tell the difference between a hard no, stop bothering me, and I don't think so, that kind of thing, you know? So again, just, you know, be aware of these things. But sometimes, especially, well, I wouldn't want to say especially as women, because I see men do it a lot too, but like, we continually choose people who don't appreciate us for who we really are. And sometimes relationships like feel too easy, and we are so used to these like tumultuous, which is definitely a word I learned from Alanis Morissette songs. We're too used to these tumultuous relationships that we see portrayed in movies that feel very romantic and thrilling, but actually are just going to make you exhausted. And everything I just said kind of comes to fruition when she goes into her chorus, where she says, you've already won me over in spite of me, and don't be alarmed if I fall head over feet, and don't be surprised if I love you for all that you are. I couldn't help it. It's all your fault. I can't even read these lyrics without crying. I love these songs so much. So yeah, it's just about someone who, after being, this song is just like, in a nutshell, she's been treated like shit by these guys who she chases, and there's this person right here who knew that he would treat her super kindly, and he kept kind of reminding her of that, and being polite and asking how her day was and holding the door and treating her like a princess. And when she finally got out of her own way, she was able to fall deeply in love with him. So again, you know, that's certainly timeless. Moving on to Mary Jane. Mary Jane, song number 9. I would say when I was a kid, Mary Jane was probably my least favorite song on the album. But it's a little bit more of a complex song. And it's a little creepy, actually, if you've never heard it. I highly recommend kind of like going on Spotify or whatever and listening to this album before or after you finish this podcast. So Mary Jane starts with, "What's the matter, Mary Jane? You had a hard day," as you place the "Don't Disturb" sign on the door. So Mary Jane, I never really thought about this beyond the part where she says, "I hear you're losing weight again, Mary Jane. Do you ever wonder who you're losing it for?" So obviously there's kind of like an eating disorder theme here. And this to me is just like about an abused woman. Yeah. So like she doesn't want to dance anymore. She has no like interest in dreaming. She's losing weight. She has a few more bruises on her body. She feels like she needs to censor her tears. And Alanis is kind of talking to what I'm guessing is Mary Jane's another version of Alanis, to just like get her freedom and don't worry about being selfish. I never really thought a ton about this song, again, because it wasn't like one of the songs I listened to deep into, in the part of my life when I was really into this song. So let me look up Mary Jane's song meaning, if there's anything like any hidden tidbits that I am missing about this, because I always think that's interesting. There are some cool facts about Jagged Little Pill as well that I found in an article, including like Dave Navarro played guitar on one of the songs on Jagged Little Pill, which the artist formerly known as Corn Guy pointed out to me. So funny. So song meanings, Alanis Morissette. Let's see what the people are saying. Of course, these are just like idiots like myself analyzing the song, so who the fuck knows? So the general comment from the first person is, "This isn't about drugs. It's about a girl who dedicates her life to making others happy and not herself." The person who is singing, "This is a warning for her to not ignore her own problems and that she doesn't wear a facade all the time." Second comment is, "Mary Jane is just your typical woman. She has problems and fears like the rest of us. This song is about a woman trying to overcome her fears and emotional problems to become the woman she wants to be." Okay, yeah. I knew the song wasn't about drugs because it's a little bit confusing, because Mary Jane can also be used as a name to say for pot, but yeah, it's like about self-destruction, getting in bad relationships and not paying attention to your own feelings. I think that's a nice way to summarize it. That's a good song to listen to, just for everyone. We've all done that, I think. Then we move on to Ironic. Of course, everyone knows this song, and it's hack at this point to point out the fact that most of the examples Alanis uses in this, again, aren't irony. We already know that. We already talked about that. It's just an iconic song in American female 90s rock. Of course, the first line, "An old man turned 98. He won the lottery and died the next day. It's a black fly in your Chardonnay. It's a death row pardon. 2 minutes too late." You know, no one can really capture Alanis, but goddamn, it's fun to try. Oh, and also, please never, this is just a note to everyone, please, please, please never sing Alanis Morissette when you do karaoke. I know you get drunk and you have a few in you, and you go and you say, "Yeah, I want to get back at that dude, and I'm going to sing You Ought to Know." It's never going to go well. I've actually never seen it go well. And I've seen people with good voices attempt it. There is just something about Alanis that you really you don't want to capture. And if you try to sing Alanis like on a singing show or something, you're going to want to, as Paula Abdul would say, make it your own. You're going to want to slow it down. You're going to want to maybe sing it slowly at a keyboard. You're definitely not going to want to try to recapture it in the same way that she does, because that's not going to work. So this is purely about how life has a funny way of sneaking up on you when you think everything's okay and everything's going right. That's the bridge. I think that's probably my favorite song in my favorite lyric in the song, because a lot of them are just examples. So yeah. I do also like the place where she goes, Mr. Play It Safe was afraid to fly. He packed his suitcase and kissed his kids goodbye. He waited his whole damn life to take that flight. And as the plane crashed down, he thought, well, isn't this nice? It just makes me laugh because I feel like if I constantly think about planes crashing, and I can't help but think if I was in a plane crash that I would just sit there and be like, well, of course. I don't know. What are you gonna do? You know? Okay, so song 11, we go to Not the Doctor. Again, this is probably tied with Mary Jane for songs like I did not understand or would fast forward through when I was a kid, because they're a little bit heavier. But now that as a grown up, like, I really love Not the Doctor. Not the Doctor is now one of my favorite songs. Not the Doctor starts, I don't want to be the filler if the void is solely yours. Yes. I mean, tattoo that on yourself. Right out of the gates, we are getting better advice than probably most of your therapists, parents, and friends have ever given you combined. This, especially as someone who has dated a lot of artists, is such a common theme in my life, and such a common theme in relationships, and such a cause for frustration and contempt amongst me and exes. But yeah, I don't want to be the filler if the void is solely yours. Such a important sentence. Write it on a post-it, put it on your fucking MacBook Pro, place it over your vagina. Just remember that line. There's gonna be a lot of people that you fucking meet who have some void that they're trying to fill, and if you don't have the same problem, if you can't fill one another's, boy, that's going to be an exhausting relationship. We move on to the next line. I don't want to be your glass of single malt whiskey hidden in the bottom drawer. I don't want to be a bandage if the wound is not mined. Lend me some fresh air. I don't want to be adored for what I merely represent to you. I don't want to be your babysitter. You're a very big boy now. I don't want to be your mother. This is a good one. I didn't carry you in my womb for 9 months. That literally is a line that... like, I'll be in a fight with a boyfriend, and in my head, I'll hear Alanis say, I don't want to be your mother. I didn't carry you in my womb for 9 months. Show me the back door. Like, this just, if any of these resonate deeply with you in the relationship that you're currently in, run for the fucking hills. And then you go back to the title, Not the Doctor, and you go, oh, I see what the fuck she was saying. I'm not your fucking therapist. I'm not here to walk you through life. I'm not here to hold your hand. I'm not here to figure out what went wrong. I'm not here to be the thing that you run to when you can't handle it. I'm not here to represent the girl that left you or broke your heart. Like, I am none of these things. I am your equal and I am your partner. And if you can't treat me like that, I'm peacing out. And chorus, again, so good. Visiting hours are 9 to 5. And if I show up at 10 past 6, will I already know that you'll find some way to sneak me in? And oh, mind the empty bottle with the holes along the bottom. You see, it's too much to ask for, and I am not the doctor. Goes on, other examples. God. Oh my God, this is such a good song. I don't want to be the sweeper of the eggshells that you walk upon. And I don't want to be your other half. I believe that 1 and 1 make 2. I don't want to be your food or the light from the fridge on your face at midnight. Hey, what are you hungry for? And I like to read this one because number one, it's definitely a lesser known Alanis Morissette song, but such a good one. And she also, the way she sings is so fast and kind of she uses interesting rhythmic patterns that sometimes you miss all these kind of gems that she put in here. And like, yeah, I mean, if we're talking about like complexity of words or, you know, not just like like, I think people might think this is a little bit more of a simple album because once you read the lyrics, they're pretty easy to understand. We're not using like any literary elements to mask what the true meaning of things. She's just kind of presenting as is, but isn't that nice? Because if you think about it, you know, relationships, there's always so much going on that you don't know. People are saying things that they don't mean. So if we're writing an album about a relationship, isn't it nice if the person just kind of says what they mean? And when you're going through a breakup, maybe you don't need that extra headache of having to fucking read something and you go, oh, is this an illusion? Is this is this some kind of a tale that we're using to represent something else? You know, like, I don't I don't know what people want. The girl's 19 years old. This is fucking fabulous work. Okay, go back and read something that you wrote when you were 19 years old, and you're gonna probably be like, well, number one, you're gonna have to go to like a Zanga to get that information, or your MySpace account, and then you're gonna be like, wow, this is pretty terrible. Yeah, I wanted to look up some literary elements. do okay, literary devices. Yeah, like what else? Like what would you use? You would use metaphors. Like what would people be looking for in these fucking albums? A little metaphor? You want a metaphor? You want symbolism? You want hyperbole? Like, what do you want? I don't know. I like a song that makes me feel something, and this makes me feel something. Okay. I don't want to be lived through vicarious occasion. So good. Okay. Highly recommend that one. And it's like, I'm looking at this lyric track list, and like, it's one of the, Not the Doctor is probably one of the least viewed songs on this. Actually, it is the least viewed song, and that's a damn shame because it's one of the ones that you're going to get the most out of. Because back in the day, the first song was my favorite, which is All I Really Want. It's very grungy. Rosebud already talked about it. But just the way it starts, Do I Stress You Out? My sweater is on backwards and inside out. To me, that really spoke to me as a kid. Because I feel like I often stress people out because I don't do things the way that everyone else does them. And people are like, why are you doing stuff that way, Corinne? And I go, relax. I know what I'm doing. Calm down. All right, so we move on to the second half of the album. Is to me a lot more adult and a lot kind of creepier. So song number 12 is Wake Up. And a lot of Alanis' songs handle this kind of notion of wanting one thing that, like, wanting something that doesn't exist, wanting people to be someone that they aren't. Like, irony is a theme throughout, whether or not she's using examples correctly. So a Wake Up starts with, you like snow, but only if it's warm. You like rain, but only if it's dry. Okay, again, this is simple. There's no sentimental value to the rose that fell on your floor. No fundamental excuse for the granted I'm taken for. And again, Alanis will do stuff like that a lot, especially in later albums. Like, instead of saying taken for granted, she'll switch things up. And this used to drive my mom, the English teacher, fucking crazy. She'll go, for the granted I'm taken for. She'll also use large words that don't really fit in the sentence poetically, and she'll kind of like break them up. So sometimes, like, instead of saying like granted, she doesn't do it this time, but she'll be like granted, like she'll like resistance, like she'll just like break it up so that it ends up fitting, even though it's really too many syllables for the line. But I think that's great, and it's like something that you really only at that time was like hearing Alanis do, and like that's so awesome because that's her thing. That's like, you know, that's like. That's the Danny Elfman to her Tim Burton. I don't know. It's just the signature of her songwriting style, and I think it's beautiful. Okay, so the chorus for this is, because it's easy not to, so much easier not to, and what goes around never comes around to you. You like pain, but only if it doesn't hurt too much. And you sit and you wait to receive. That's my favorite line in the song. This is probably, at this point in my life, my least favorite song, just because there's not anything in it that really like jumps out at me. But I will then go to the song meanings and kind of look into what people are saying about Wake Up. Gosh, I love this. And if you are young and you've never heard this album, you need to listen to this album. It's so good. And it's I think it will help you understand, women in their 30s and 40s a little bit more, because I know there's often a disconnect. And I see this, like, even when I do stand-up comedy, one of the hardest groups of people to make laugh as a younger attractive woman is like kind of these like these women in their 40s, I will say. And it's just because I think there's not respect. Like we don't give enough respect to those women. And so sometimes they are like a little resentful. And of course, your body is changing. They think we're like fucking their men. And, some of you are, but I'm not. Well, I guess I am right now, but he wasn't with anyone. So he was just laying on the side of the road. And I said, yes, please. Laying on the side of the road. I'm making myself laugh. Okay, so Wake Up. What are the people saying? All right, so I'm going to read the one that has the most upvotes. This is a perfect example of some of the people who inhabit this world. They think they know how life is. They think they understand when life hasn't truly touched them. They like the idea of things until they're directly in it. The snow is nice unless you have to feel that it's cold. Oh, this is good. This is like a millennial anthem in the way this person is explaining it. The rain is enjoyable until you get wet. That rose is on the ground now. It's ruined. It's dirty. There's no beauty to be seen in it. It might as well be a turd because it sure as hell isn't wanted now. You take others for granted, but will never admit it, never apologize. You talk of your misery. You love the attention you get from it as long as you're not going through it. That's a great line. You sit on your ass waiting for someone to do for you because you're too lazy to do the work yourself. No matter what anyone says, you refuse to try anything. You use and use until there's nothing left and your host has crumbled at rock bottom. You don't care because caring is too hard. You believe in karma, except you're the only one exempt from it. Why do they act that way? Because it's so much fucking easier to not be a decent human being. Everyone is tired of your shit. They have seen enough of it. You don't get off of that BS and wake the fuck up. You need to get off that BS and wake the fuck up. Well, number one, obviously this song really struck a chord with whoever is commenting on songmeanings.com, but good for them because they did a great job. Yeah, I guess it makes sense now, kind of like reading what that person got out of it, just because, like, I don't know, I don't really tolerate people like this, so I think this song doesn't really, I don't really need this song because I can guide myself without this song for this aspect of my life. But it's a great reminder to like wake up and realize that life isn't going to adjust to you. You need to adjust to life while still maintaining your sense of self and purpose. So yeah, I mean, this is so common also, like when dealing with, for me, comedians. Jesus Christ, comedians love complaining but then doing nothing fucking about it. That is great. So last song we're gonna get to is Your House. Your House is the bonus track on Jagged Little Pill. If you didn't actually own the album or like the CD and kind of let it play out, because there's like back in the day when we listened to things on albums or CDs or cassette tapes, sometimes there'd be a bonus track that wasn't listed, and if you just let the cassette tape or the CD play, it would go to, there would be some silent space, and then it would go to this song that we didn't know was there. And it was, the prize at the end of the Cracker Jack box. And it was very exciting. And on Jagged Little Pill, we find the song Your House. Your House is beautiful. It's the kind of song that you want to like put on ballet shoes and do a little ballerina dance to. This is just kind of a more of a narrative piece about going into an ex's house and touching his clothes and taking a shower in his shower and playing his Joni Mitchell CD, and burning his incense and seeing a letter on his desk that is from another woman who he's moved on to love, and just kind of like basking. It reminds me a lot actually of the song Gwen Stefani did called Bathwater, which is one of my favorite songs, because like no matter how long you've been over someone, like there are those moments or even if you're not over them, like there's those moments when even if you're not reaching out to them anymore directly, you are smelling their shirt or you're listening to that song that they used to love. And there's something that is very soothing about those smells and those sounds and being in that person's environment, even though we can no longer be with that person. So it's just kind of like, you know, the same as Gwen Stefani would say, I still love to wash in your old bathwater. So it's obviously a feeling that a lot of people have. You know, I definitely get sentimental if I drive by, you know, an ex's apartment, or if my first boyfriend ever used to wear this Abercrombie and Fitch cologne. And to this day, when you walk by an Abercrombie and Fitch in the summer and the doors are open, there is that certain smell. And I feel like no matter how old I get, I will always think of this one person when I walk by that door, because it's a smell that has been forever ingrained in my brain, and to the point where like if I met someone who wore that, I don't know if I could date them because I would be thinking of this other person too much. So yeah, and so oh god, that's a real, and it's like after going through the emotional roller coaster that is Jagged Little Pill, to be hit unexpectedly with Your House is that's a jagged little pill to swallow. Yeah, so that's kind of a rundown of the album that means so much to me, and definitely is simple and is, you know, was a lot more complex to a fifth grader than it is to me now at 33. But it is not less meaningful, because these songs are still great pieces of advice, and the way she executes them is so good, so flawless, at the same time so flawed and yet so flawless, that I really just don't understand how anyone could feel differently about it. But you know, we live in a world where we're concentrating on, you know, on articles about Gwen Stefani being a person who wears bindies, and because of that it's a cultural appropriation. Basically, we're so obsessed with, you know, like that kind of shit, that so it's just fun to tear other people down instead of doing some introspection, which is what Alanis Morissette was doing at the time. And by the way, I know this week there's been this whole, like, you know, it comes around time and time again that people accusing Gwen Stefani of cultural appropriation. But I found this great article in Huffington Post by an Indian woman saying basically like wearing a bindi is not cultural appropriation, because to be true cultural appropriation, it has to be not only the adoption of a specific part of one's culture by another cultural group, but it's when one cultural group adopts something cultural, and in the adaptation it is void of the significance that it was supposed to have initially. Like, it strips the religious, historical, and cultural context of something and makes it mass marketable. So that is what makes it offensive. So like if so if one day everyone's decided like, oh, yarmulkes are cute, I'm going to wear a yarmulke without knowing the religious significance of a yarmulke, that would be cultural appropriation. But this woman is saying that, she said basically most South Asians would not be able to tell you the religious significance of a bindi and are also using it as just a fashion statement. So she said because of that, it's not cultural appropriation and everyone needs to calm the fuck down. And I thought that was great, since basically every article I read on it was by a white woman. It was nice to read an article being like, nah, by an Indian woman. So that's my last note for the week. And what's making me feel less lonely this week? Well, I was on an airplane for a while yesterday, and I ended up having just a really, really long, fun text conversation with one of my all-time favorite fuck buddies. I've only really had 2 long-time fuck buddies, and this is the one that I had for this later part in my life, or the second part, hopefully not later, Jesus. And it was just nice. It's nice to kind of know that we're not fucking anymore, but to maintain a relationship. And I think this is a person who, probably out of all the people I've been with sexually, one of the people that I was like least sensitive to their feelings, and I have apologized, and I definitely regret how I treated him. And I did apologize a while ago, years ago, and our relationship was able to be resuscitated, and now we have like a really good friendship, and like we'll message each other kind of a lot of inside joke things, and I'm just really thankful that I didn't lose him as a friend. And you know, I also recommend him if anyone asks, because he's a great fuck. And that's it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Two Less Lonely Girls. I'm CORINNE Fisher. You can follow me on social media at Philanthropy Gal. I know this episode is really long, but honestly, it's Alanis Morissette, and I could do an entire podcast series about just her. Love you. Bye.